Grand Rising and welcome to New Mind, where our intention is clear and is to share information for transformation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're streaming this on any of the streaming audios, check out the YouTube page. It's something that I started this year. I really want to give my audience that listen an opportunity to view. So if you are, please subscribe. And again, thank you for taking the time. I'm going to be sharing a solo podcast today. It's going to be me and you, but I really want to go deep a little bit. If you know me, you know I like to go beyond the surface. And this topic in particular, this piece of information that I'm going to share with you truly changed the trajectory in my life. And it made me more aware of how to manage my mind, but also it made me progress in life much more faster, because once I realized and got to know how the mind actually creates reality through distortion, deletion, and generalization, it started to make sense for me where I needed to make change. And this is why today, genuinely ask you to stay till the end, because I'm going to drop some key insights, some actionable things, and more importantly, some deep questions that is going to allow you to zoom out, reflect, and make some changes in your life. Of course, positive changes. That's the intention. So guys, let me start by, stating the obvious. Most people think they are responding to reality, right? But the truth is, we are not responding to reality itself. And I know this sometimes can be tricky when I say it, but what actually is happening, we are actually responding to our internal representation of reality. And that internal representation is shaped by our past conditioning, by our beliefs. You hear me say this all the time. By our experiences, our fears, the identity, the nervous system patterns, and what the actual unconscious mind has learned to expect from life. And this is really important when you think about it. These are all mechanisms that are happening in the back end of our mind. It's not something that we control. It's not something that we have control over unless we use certain tools and techniques, which we'll get into. But the idea here is to just be aware at this stage and really be aware of how your mind is creating this reality, okay? So a very important question, it's not what people always go to, is like, okay, well, what do I want to create? That's a common question that people ask themselves. What do I want to create in my life? What do I want to achieve, right? But there is a deeper question. And the deeper question that most people forget asking themselves, and this is maybe, if you're listening to this or watching this, I would encourage you to maybe take a pen and paper, but write this down. What version of reality am I unconsciously creating from? What version of reality am I actually creating from? See, what version of reality am I unconsciously creating from? Because two people can experience the same situation and walk away with two completely different meanings. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it happened to me many times. I'll go out and I'll meet with a friend, and I will go meet another person, and I would walk away saying, wow, what a pleasant person, what a nice experience. And my friend or the person next to me would say, what are you talking about? Didn't you see this, and that? Didn't you? And they start pointing out things that I literally didn't pick up. And we walk away with two different experiences. And the reason that happens is because one of us is deleting, distorting, and generalizing information, data differently. And that is happening subconsciously. It's not even happening like by intention. It just happens where we are distorting reality. So it's all a distortion, right? So one person's might be seeing something, and it's highlighted in his reality because that's a focus filter for him. And for another, it could be completely different. One person sees redirection. Another person sees failure. Another person sees feedback. Another person can see it as a threat, the conversation itself. So this is why we always need to understand that that's subjective to our conditioning. Some people will see a conversation or something as an opportunity, while, as I mentioned, the other might see it as a disaster or a threat, right? So the event might be the same, but the internal filters are always different. And the filters that shape reality itself is what I'm talking about. And guys, this is crazy because, like I said, it's so powerful to understand that what we see outside of us is a reflection of our inner world. And honestly, when I was, back in the day, I used to think, oh, that sounds spiritual. That sounds woo-woo. That sounds like, no, but really the mechanism of our mind that deletes, distorts, and generalizes data, it automatically reproduces a whole different reality that we see in front of us. I don't know if you've ever had this situation where you would walk in a mall or on the road and you're thinking about a person, or subconsciously or consciously, and you see that person and you think it's them, and you walk all the way to them, and then you really think it's them, and you go, hey, for example, Pete or whatever, and then as you come closer, you realize, oh, it's not the same person, but your mind literally filled the gap to make that person look like it was them or similar to them, right? So, important reminder is that the unconscious mind receives millions of bits of information every second for processing, but it only produces and takes a minimal of that. So when you understand that fundamentals, you start to understand there's three processes: we delete, we distort, and we generalize. Deletion is deleting literally things that's not important to you, or it's not important to your subconscious mind as filters. And we distort means, what distortion means is we falsify information to appear real. I'm going to repeat that one more time. We falsify information to appear real. How crazy is that? Literally, the mind will create an illusion to feed us that narrative, to make us think that what we're seeing is true. Meanwhile, it's not true. A lot of people don't know this, but we distort a lot in our relationships, in the conversations we have, in the things that we see in our reality, in the things we see in ourselves. We might see a completely different version of ourselves based on our focus filters, based on our conditioning, based on our beliefs. And beliefs is a big one, by the way, guys, because beliefs is the one that has the most influence in our focus filters. As I say this a lot, you've probably heard me, what we believe, we perceive. What we perceive, we experience. That's why one of the most fundamental pieces of my work is focusing on the belief system that we have developed over the years, and making sure that we remove the ones that are not serving us and build and construct new belief systems so we can see a different reality. And literally, guys, I know this sounds crazy, but we end up seeing a different reality. We end up seeing a different and having a different complete experience, both how we see ourselves and how we see the world. In other words, the mind has to simplify reality, and it has to go through these processes that I mentioned: deletion, distortion, and generalization. Generalization is an interesting one. Generalization is that we're always generalizing. So if someone had massive experiences growing up, certain repetitions about, let's say a father figure that was not present, or a situation with male experiences where it happened in a repetition three to four times, that's how the mind generalizes, in patterns of 3 or more. Then we generalize, we go, all men are like this, or we can't rely. So now you start to generalize that you believe that to be true. And if you generalize that, that's the reality you start to see, where men cannot be trusted. If I'm speaking to a woman right here, or even a young, whatever, a woman, for example, would say, well, men can't be trusted because she's had 1 or 2, 3 experiences, therefore she generalizes. Or she would say, or you could say, for example, this person is always late to work because your focus filter is people being on time. In reality, that person out of 10 times came late only 3 times. But because it's so important to you, you pick up when they were late, but you don't pick up when they were on time. So now you go, that person is always late. Or my wife or my husband never listens to me, But in reality, they do. It's just that the focus filter and the importance of you believing that as the case becomes the case. They're not necessarily bad things, these 3 filters. They're just actually necessary. And without them, we would be so overwhelmed by information, right? So it is important to remember that there's a lot of things in your reality that you don't need to see, that you don't need to focus on. Like, say, going from a meeting and driving in your car, you don't want to pay attention to how many cabs are on the road, and how many cars on the road, how many yellow cars on the road. But if you are someone that wants to buy or decides to buy a yellow car, for example, I know this is odd, just to say yellow or silver. Let's say you want to buy a silver BMW, and all of a sudden, when you think about buying a silver BMW, or you're in the market for it, all of a sudden you see so many silver BMWs on the road. Now, the question is, were those cars there before, or did they just show up? They were always there, but because you weren't focusing on them, you never really saw them. And think about that example in life in general. the key important understanding here is understanding what are your filters shaped by. And this is a key area in my work. What are your filters shaped by? Are they shaped by fear, trauma, emotional pain, limiting beliefs, old conditioning? And if they are, we don't see life clearly. We see life through the past. That's why one of the most important things in any deep and real effective transformational work is letting go of the past. Letting go of unprocessed emotions and releasing them, and letting go of all the trauma, all the limitations of the past, because they have an influence in how you see yourself now and how you see your future. This is super, super important when you understand that. So we need to delete in a way that is supporting us. Deletion is, again, so important. Where the mind removes information from your awareness, we need to make sure that we're removing the correct information, not the positive information that we can't see ourselves in a positive light. We can't see our partners in a positive light. You got what I mean? You may have opportunities around you that support around you, love around you, solutions around you, but your nervous system is programmed to look for danger, rejection, failure, abandonment. You may be deleting the evidence that is actually good for you, something that is in your life already, that is available to you. So that is just understanding the importance. I mean, a common thing that I see in my clients is that someone compliments you, but you just don't take it in. 10 things go right, but your mind focuses only on the one thing that went wrong. I mean, how many people like this? Probably yourself. If you're listening to this, it might resonate with you, right? Someone shows you love, but you only notice where they didn't meet your expectations. This happens a lot in relationship. But this is deletion, guys. This is what deletion is. And this is why some people say, nothing ever works for me. Have you heard that? Maybe you've said it or heard someone say. But the deeper truth here, guys, is that their mind has been trained and conditioned to delete the evidence that something is working. Now, imagine living life through that lens. Imagine it constantly makes you feel that you're stuck, that you're not progressing, right? Again, I'm going to touch on distortion. Distortion, guys, remember, it's falsifying information to be real. It's when the mind changes the meaning of what happened. Someone does not reply to your message. The fact is simple. They have not replied yet. But the mind might distort it into, they don't care. I mean, guys, how many of you that are listening to this now or watching this can resonate with that? I did something wrong. I'm not important. I'm not good enough. I'm being rejected. See the conclusion that jumps into? That's because of the conditioning. That's because of the filters of how they see that experience and that interaction. And that meaning may have nothing to do with the present moment. And it may have nothing to do, it's just an old wound speaking, a past emotional experience that hurt but stays with you. And it's a familiar pattern. And this is why my really big one for me is understanding that the fear that has not been processed is always the one that tends to influence. This is the powerful, and this is so powerful because we don't suffer only from what happens, we suffer from what the meaning we attach to what happens. And this is, if you get that, it changes everything. And if you understand that you can change the meaning-making process, and if the meaning is created from pain, the reality we experience becomes painful. Take that into account. Make those notes and understand what are you distorting in your reality today? What are you deleting that is going almost back to the default, right? What are you generalizing today? The same patterns that keep repeating itself. Because remember, generalization is when the mind takes one experience or a few, which I say patterns of 3, and turns them into a rule in your life. This is about you. One relationship that hurt you, so the mind says people can't be trusted. One business that failed, so the mind says I'm not good at business. That's generalization, right? One time you spoke up where you were judged, so the mind says it's not safe to be seen. One moment where there's rejection, automatically people get, this is a very common pattern. I'm not good enough because you got rejected, right? One painful experience becomes an identity. And this is how we create unconscious rules. And those rules become the invisible boundaries of our life. Guys, if you're taking this information in, this is life-changing. I'm not even joking. If you take this information and you do an audit on what are you deleting, what are you distorting, what are you generalizing based on the repeated patterns, you'll come to realize they are all coming from your past. They're all coming from your conditioning. That's why deep inner conditioning work is the most important, in my humble opinion. This is where real change happens, because you start to see your life and you see reality different. And like I say, it's all a distortion. It really is. But because they become familiar, and what feels familiar often feels safe to the nervous system. And that's why we need to understand that that's where change needs to happen. The cycle of reality and creation is where most people are living inside without realizing it. You have an experience, that experience creates an emotional imprint, that emotional imprint creates a belief, that belief becomes a filter, that filter shapes what you delete, distort, and generalize. That creates the perception of your reality. And like I say, your perception creates your emotional state drives your behavior creates your results, and your results reinforces the original belief. It's a cycle, guys. It's crazy. But if you're getting this information, this is how it all works. So now the mind starts to say, after the results that reinforce the original belief, see, I told you this is who you are. See, I told you people leave. See, I told you success is hard. You see, I told you you're not ready. That's the reinforcement that I'm talking about. But the result is not always proof of truth. Sometimes the result is proof of conditioning. And when you understand that, you free yourself. You understand that you're not weak, you are conditioned. This is why I always say, you don't keep repeating the same patterns because you're weak. You keep repeating them because on some level, they feel familiar. And what feels familiar often feels safe to the nervous system. The body can become addicted to creating certain emotional states. Stress, self-doubt, anxiety, that's what you feel familiar with. Some people have guilt. Some people feel this constant pressure. And it's not because you consciously want them. Who wants that? No one wants that. But because the nervous system knows them. So when you try to create a new life, your conditioning and your conscious mind will say, I want more, right? That's what we want. We always want more. But your nervous system might say, this doesn't feel safe. And this is why, and this is where most people get stuck. No one will tell you this, guys. No one will tell you, and that's why they think change can't happen. No, it can. But you need to understand how your nervous system works, how your mind works. And a lot of people, they try to create change from their life only through thinking. Sorry, guys, that does not work. They have not changed the emotional patterns underneath. So the real work is understanding that we can never think greater than we feel. And that's really one of the things that one of my mentors told me, and it really changed how I perceive life, how I perceive this work, and how I really understand things on a deeper level. Because when you really understand that, you realize something powerful. You cannot create a new reality from the same emotional state that created the old one. You cannot create confidence while your body is still rehearsing fear. And you cannot create abundance while your body is still living in survival or lack. You can simply, and also, let's talk about love for a moment. Sorry. You cannot create love while your nervous system is experiencing rejection. Think about that. You cannot create freedom while your identity is still attached to an old story. That's why mindset alone is not enough. Because mindset without emotional release becomes positive thinking, and we all know that that's temporarily. But we have to go deeper. We have to go to do the deep identity work. And your identity is the reality creating engine, because you will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. Remember, you will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. So if your identity is, I'm not ready, I'm not enough, I always mess things up. I have to prove myself. I'm not safe being seen. Then even if you want a new reality, your actions will keep pulling you back into the familiar one. This is why transformation is not just about changing what you do. It's about changing who you are being when you are doing it, when you're in that experience. Because the same action always performed from fear and not from alignment creates a different result. I hope this has been insightful, guys. I hope you're taking notes. And I really want you guys to understand this is my mission. This is my intention. I'm doing so many new things, guys. I'm working so much behind the scenes. You probably haven't seen me doing some live solo podcasts because I've had some amazing guests, but also I've been doing some amazing projects, and I'm building some new experiences for you. Not only for those that work with me privately, because I know the VIP experience is not for everyone, but I'm creating some experiences that is going to be open to everyone around the world, to groups that can come in at any time, group individual experiences, really achieving certain objectives. And one of them is going to be called the Inner Recode Experience. And I can't wait to share it with you guys. Something I've been working almost 6 months behind the scenes on, and having this container of an intimate group experience. And this is not going to be about motivation. It's not going to be about positive thinking. It's going to be about really understanding deep inner pattern work and shaping the reality from behind the scenes. We're going to go deep into the beliefs, the emotional imprints, the nervous system, and really do some deep integration work. It's an experience that you're going to feel. And I can't wait to share it with you guys. And I can't wait to have a lot of you guys that are from all parts of the world, that are not in Dubai, that don't get to be in the room with me. But this is going to be an opportunity and accessible for everyone to come in and to get knowledge, tools, and have real breakthroughs in the moment. In the moment. So when you change and you leave that experience, you will be a changed person. And this is, I'm not saying this lightly, guys. I have the tools to actually get those results and to shift and get you in a very powerful and coherent state. This is what Recode is about. It's about release, it's about reconditioning, and it's about realigning. And I really can't wait to connect with you all in this experience. So guys, just a closing reflection for yourself. I want you to ask yourself, what am I deleting that could actually support me? What am I distorting that may not be the truth? What have I generalized for years or for a short period or long period of time in the past that is now limiting my future? What emotional state am I creating from every day? This is so important. Ask yourself that question. What's your default state of being? How you think, how you feel in your nervous system? And who would I become if I stopped recreating that reality from the wound and started creating from alignment? Because your future is not only created by what you want, it is created by what you believe is possible, what your nervous system feels it's safe, and who you believe yourself to be. And guys, that is where the real work begins. So again, guys, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for jumping in on this podcast with me. If you're watching this, please subscribe. I have a lot of views and I want you guys to subscribe. Those that are listening to this, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on this journey with me. And guys, I really want to create more with you guys. I want to get to meet you guys, all my listeners from all around. I want to have the opportunity to meet you, and I'm going to make this accessible for everyone. That's my promise to you. Thank you. Much love and positive energy.